I just came back from Longwood in Houston for the convocations. One of our keynote guest speakers was Bishop, oh my God, how did I know his name blank? I just talked about it twice this morning. No, bishops of Reno, Nevada. Bishops, Calvo. Bishop Calvo from Reno, Nevada. He's the first Asian Pacific Islander bishop ordinary in this country. He said that his father is Filipino, his father is Spanish, but I don't think so. Well, he may look like one, but he's only 4 feet 11. So I really like him when I stand right next to him, I feel like I'm invincible. But the guy is absolutely funny. And, you know, we talk about how we can deal with parishioners as pastors, you know, how we can shepherd and guide them better. We have big group talkings and small group sharings, and we even go into the relationship, how do we deal if in the parish there are 2 priests there, you know, if a priest and a retired priest, or if a pastor living with an assistant. And one of the stories they told, I don't know how true that is, they claim to be true, is that when he was in San Francisco, he was a priest from San Francisco, he said he was there, and there's a Filipino priest who came from Philippines and don't like in-house dogs. You know, he's okay with outside pets, but not the big dogs going inside. But he lived with an Irish pastor who loved to have the dogs in the house. And not only that, when dinner began, like the pastor sit on one chair, the assistant on another one, and 3 other seats for 3 dogs to sit and eat together. So the assistant got really frustrated, but he didn't know what to do since he's not the boss of the church. So one day the pastor went off for 2 weeks vacation, go back to Ireland. The assistant thought about it, so every night when he sit down and eat, the 3 dogs jump on the regular 3 seat. So he turned around, he took the crucifix hanging on the wall of the dining hall, and he used the crucifix to beat up the dog. Now after about 2 weeks, the pastor came back. They sat down for dinner, and the pastor said, "Where's my dogs?" He said, "What? Out there. Can you see?" And the pastor tried to call the dog to sit on the chair, and the dog would refuse to jump on it. The pastor asked the assistant, "What's wrong with my dogs?" He said, "Nothing wrong. I think all 3 of them are being possessed." The pastor said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if you don't believe me, turn around and cut the crucifix and they go run." I hope that none of you was being possessed by the time I was gone. Now, as again I said, I don't know how true the story is. But it's also conveyed was something we heard in today's message. That many of us are struggle, and many of us, including priests and deacons and religious brothers and sisters, we try to fight for position. We try to fight so that we can be in control, so that we can be in charge, so that people can recognize our status of how good we are. We salute them, you know, they salute us with names and honors. We all love that. None of us sit out and say, "Well, I want to be nobody." We want to be somebody. We want to achieve greatness in life. We want to do good for ourselves and for others. We want to be the best parents out there that we could for our children. We want to be the best wife that we could be. We want to be the best husband that we could be. Nobody get married and tell your spouse, "Well, I don't want to be a good wife. I just want to be a miserable wife." No one say the same to their wife, that "I want to be the worst husband ever." We all want to be good, and which is perfectly okay. Because that goodness is not pointing at us. That goodness is the goodness that's shared, that overflows to others. That's what God is telling us today. And then he moves on and he tells something. The Protestant would love to jump on that and condemn us. The something really bad. Well, isn't that what really Jesus talked about? If Jesus said what he really meant exactly, it is what it is here, then the first guy who commit the mortal sin would not be you nor me. It would be St. Paul. In his letter to Titus, Paul addressed them as I'm addressing you as a father and you are my children. Not only they call him father, he called himself the father to them. Not even bad, isn't it? So Paul was the first one who committed that mortal sin. Isn't that what God calling us? I really don't think so. What God addressing us is this. It's okay to call some people teachers. I don't think that the Protestants would call their teachers something else and not teachers. Right? They do that all the time. What God really tells you and me here today, if you want to be a teacher, and you should be, then you should learn from the one and the only teacher, the Christ, who teach the truth, who walk the truth, and who live the truth. You want to be called Father, that's rightly so, but you should learn to be the Father from the one and the only, the Father in heaven. That is how we're going to be Father and teachers and Master. I remember the day I was ordained 7.5 years ago. After the laying on of hands and ordained me to become a priest, the bishop then poured the oil, the same oil that was set on your forehead on your baptism and your confirmation. He poured the oils on our hands, set it aside to do God's will. But that wasn't so. After that, I knew in front of the bishop, holding the gospel book. The bishop held the gospel book out like this, and I placed my hands on top of that. And the bishop said these words, Martino, believe what you read. Teach what you believe. And practice what you teach. I say it again. The bishop said, believe what you read. Teach what you believe. And practice what you teach. Now the first two I'm doing pretty good on that. I believe what I read. You can see it. And you can see I preach what I truly believe. But then the third part is where I get in a lot of problems. I don't practice many times the thing that I teach. But isn't that who we are? That's why we need God's grace. That's why we need a model of a teacher. That's why we need the model of the Father in heaven, where we are striving to be there, to be like Him, no one else. That's what God called us to be. God called us to be leaders, but leaders for the service of others. God called us to be teachers, but teachers of the truth. God called us to be master, but the master of servant. You and I are called to do the same. In whatever we do, as grandparents, parents, even as children, we call to lead and to walk by that truth. To believe in what we live and what we preach. Children nowadays, I don't know, by the time I was young, I think I was pretty stupid by that time, because everything they said, I believe in it. Even by the age of 10, I believe that children came out from the thing, whatever you call right here. What is it? What do you call this one? Yeah, the belly button. At the age of 10. That's what I believe. Because they told me so. But children nowadays, with the internet, with the TVs, with everything else, it's just an amazing of what they know. So they would look at you and me and they know if we walk in that truth. If we preach in that truth, we can no longer lie to them. They can Google, search our answer. That's terrible, isn't it? But that's good somewhat. So my dear friends, Jesus tells us we need to be father and teachers, but learn from the one and the only. Learn from the only teacher who ever walked this earth. Learn from the only Father who created the universe, and you and me in it. called us to lead, but let lead it in a way for the goodness of others. Other than that, it's all about me. I want to share with you as I add this homily, something that just for me personally. You walk in my office, if you ever will, you will see that I hang everything I can find around my office. I mean, pictures and everything else. Sometimes I walk into my office and say, is there anything else you can hang it up around? Well, I hang all those things up because that reminds me of the goodness of the people. You know, there are days that I just struggle with my own priesthood. There are days that I'm questioning what the heck I'm doing. You know, there are days that there are too many things that around me and I just feel like I can do nothing for the people. I feel their pain and here I'm standing here and feel like powerless. And I just want to give up. Then I look at those pictures and I was like, you know what, I'm not alone. The people are here with me. I have 2 stacks of thank you letters that people sent me in my last 7.5 years being a priest. Every time I go down and pick up those letters, I read. Because I know I'm not in there alone. The people are there with me. But we walk into my bedroom. I think someday I should have a rectory open day for the rectory for you to come. In my bedroom, there's no pictures, nothing hanging around, except a big crucifix facing my bed. And every night before I go to bed, I try to use a few seconds just to reflect upon it, to face God face to face. Because whether I like it or not, one day I will have to face Him face to face. So every night before I go to bed, I look at that and I reflect upon my day. You know, if during the day the people say, hey Martino, you're such the best priest we ever met. You're such a holy man. But if that day I go home and I look at him and I'm afraid to look, I know I'm the first on the highway to hell. Because everything probably I did, how wonderful I am that day, it's just to show off. Or it's just so that people can look at me and praises me of how wonderful that man Martino is. But even if I go home at night and that day the people say, hey Martino, you suck. Who you think you are? You're just a little lolly guy. Who are you to stand up there and talk and try to tell us what to do? Or blah, blah, whatever they can call me. But if that night I go home and I face God and I can put a smile on my face and He smiles back at me, no matter what people say, I know I'm on the first on the highway to heaven. Because it's not about me. It's about His glory. It's about Him, the teacher. It's about Him, the master that we follow. Neither you nor I will last at the end. We like it or not, one day we're going to face that teacher and master. And will we dare to look at Him and say, God, I know I have felt miserable. I couldn't even count the times that I felt. But you know what? I have done my best for your glory. Or we could walk in it, God looked at us and God said, you did a lot of good things when you was on earth. What was the last thing that you did for me? Was all